Greetings adventurers, and welcome to Lookout Marketplace. Sometimes as a Dungeon Master, you can get annoyed with how powerful casters get as they level up. You want to keep the Barbarian competitive with the Wizard, but after a while, being able to take a few more swings with a few extra damage per roll isn't exactly going to contest with the reality bending power that is a 9th level spell. Now, you can help your martial class out by giving them some fun magic items that fill in their weaknesses and let them be able to outclass the most fearsome of monsters physically, but I regularly see DMs choose to instead heavily limit what a caster can do instead, and now everyone feels weak. Or maybe you do a little bit of both, and now your casters resent you and your martial classes might not even notice, as we'll see in today's story. Today's treasure goes by the name the Anti-Magic Dungeon Master and the Favored Barbarian. This is going to be a long story of one of my first D&D campaigns and how it ended in disaster. I was part of a heavily homebrewed game of D&D, and the Dungeon Master was very experienced. When crafting my character, I had a question about the quicken spells and asked if it meant I could cast 2 spells. I was a fairly new player. The Dungeon Master read it and said it would allow me to cast 2 spells. Neat. So the campaign is on its way, and one thing our party notices is that every battle is a life or death battle, like fighting an 80-man zombie horde with archers and wizard zombies while we're leveled 2 to 3. Almost all fights are like this. We would average 2 to 3 down teammates each fight, and almost everyone was on low health. We always fought against enemies way above our level, and it wasn't because we took the wrong route, we were following the route the DM intended. It didn't help that the DM had consistent high rolls. The Dungeon Master would also spend a lot of the time on his NPCs and make them more central to the story than us. They often had to save us from harm, and in big epic battles, we were just kind of there on the sidelines looking and fighting a couple of enemies way above our level. All his NPCs were godly beings that were untouchable for us, and they would also break character if it suited him. For instance, a flirty NPC, my character flirts back and rolls a nat 20. Our group goes wild thinking I just somehow did the ultimate Chad move. Nope, now the NPC hates my character for some reason and often almost kills him. Now the meat and potatoes of it all, and the reason I dub him the Anti-Magic Dungeon Master. At first, he allowed me to double cast spells, like I said. He didn't like it anymore because it did too much damage compared to the rest of us, he said. This, however, wasn't true. Our Barbarian often did way more damage than me, and that was before he got a mythical weapon. So from then onwards, I wasn't allowed to do double cast spells. Mattering on the addition, I hope he lets you retrain your feats there. Fine, I think it's his rules, I guess, but he also made me miss many of my damaging spells from then on out. For instance, I cast a Scorching Ray and all my rays hit the enemy, and they aren't immune or resistant to fire, but they don't take damage because I hit their tail and it just falls off without them taking damage. This happened more times than I'd like to admit. That might be one of the weirdest justifications for them not taking damage that I've seen. It's not like they have some advanced type of evasion or a special, cloak that's protecting them. No, their tail falls off and it's painless, I guess. Okay, let's move on. Besides hard nerfing my damage, he never allowed me as a caster to get any magical items. If we went to shops, I wasn't allowed to buy from the magical item section, or they for some reason never had any magic wands or anything like it. Meanwhile, they had +4 axes and swords with magical effects. This was where one of the most outrageous things happened. Our DM gave our Barbarian a manor that was so advanced it's insane. He somehow got the house of a legendary hero with a magical forge and a giant compound garden, private automatons that would fight and care for him in the house, all of that, and way more, and we were around level 6? On top of all that, he gave our Barbarian a +5 greatsword with a crit range from 15 to 20, and when activated, he would get advantage on his attack throws. The best part? He wasn't proficient with great swords but axes, but with the power of the magical forge, it became a +7 great axe and kept all of its abilities. So our Dungeon Master gave mythical weaponry to the non-casters and didn't really allow casters to find any gear that would help them. What else could he do? When he finally did find a wand, he gave it to the Barbarian who refused to give it away. The wand had 10 charges and could copy a spell it had seen in the past week once. If someone cast Fireball in front of our Barbarian, this being an 8 intelligence, 10 wisdom, no magical affinity whatsoever Barbarian, he could cast it without effort or negative modifiers because the wand would cast it, not him. Flawless logic. He also got a delayed Fire Blast necklace in case he didn't feel strong enough yet. Also, he casted a spell that was so dangerous only one other person could cast it, and this person didn't allow anyone else to cast these kinds of spells, so you would imagine he'd take the wand away. Nope, our Barbarian was the exception. He's just a cool guy like that. This while taking away my wand when I finally was able to find one. The favoritism was off the charts. Originally when I was reading this story, I thought maybe the DM had a personal vendetta vendetta against you, but it seems like he's universally doing this to all the casters. And I get that sometimes dungeon masters like low magic settings. It's not as fun as a player usually, but sometimes they're trying to balance the game where there's like, hey, there's not a lot of magic items. You have to enchant your +1 greatsword into a +2 greatsword by doing this quest and having a high level NPC help you or something. That is not this case. This is a case of the fact that he just thinks caster classes are dumb and he wants the Giga Chad Barbarian to do as much damage and crits as possible, it seems like. This guy has something against caster classes, and you guys aren't even high level enough yet where you're trying to beg him to do wish and really dumb things that would get on his nerves, so I feel like this is a him problem more than a you guys problem. Now, all of us had a profession. I was an alchemist and our barbarian a brewer, and since my magic was being halted, I figured I would create damaging potions, since I could make potions explode. However, the DM didn't allow my character to remember how he made any potion. Basically, a highly experienced alchemist wasn't allowed to remember their potions or how to make them. I also had a master in alchemy who created cool potions and whom I had a tutelage with for a long time. He often sold me potions, but when he created a potion of explosives and fiendfire, he didn't allow me to buy them. He also didn't allow me to even learn the recipe and told me I wouldn't be able to recreate them even on a nat 20. Meanwhile, our barbarian had created a brew that somehow allowed him to become a demon butterfly god. It could give him the power of flight, invisibility, and basically anything you could almost imagine. This happened because he had a legion of small demon butterflies following his desires when he drank this brew. He also could perfectly remember how to make it. And again, this profession thing seems fun. Honestly, that butterfly thing could be super fun too, where I'm thinking of like a dwarf barbarian making the weirdest brews and like summoning the wrath of the forest for some reason. But why do you gotta nerf the alchemist to do it? It feels like he's gonna let the brewer make explosives with his brews before he lets the alchemist do one of the most basic things that alchemy classes allow. Now, this is a profession very homebrewed, but obviously functionally it's nerfed for the caster and not for the non-caster. So being beyond all the options on how to improve my character and also being the only character that almost constantly gets mugged or kidnapped, I started losing hope and just genuinely not liking this campaign. That was until my friend, who had a character with an intelligence of 26, came with a plan. He got that intelligence thanks to something the DM did. Since his character was fascinated with explosions, they would ask me for help to create an explosive device, basically kind of like a bomb/mini nuke. Now, a 26 intelligence character plus a 16 intelligence character that knows a lot about explosions could probably craft something, is what we were thinking. Turns out they can't. We rolled a 19 on creating something and almost died. Turns out a 26 intelligence character isn't smarter but just thinks faster, and that my 16 intelligence character with the knowledge of explosions somehow didn't figure out that we would cause a huge dust explosion. At this point, both my friend and me were done. We had talked to the dungeon master often to try and make him see that he was unfavorable to magic characters. My friend was a cleric and constantly giving things to the martial characters and most of all the barbarian. But he said, the dungeon master is always right, and if you don't like it, leave. After thinking it over for a while, we took him up on his offer and left. The martial characters didn't understand because they were having fun, which, I mean, of course you are. You're basically gods at level 7. They're level 7? You have mythical weapons and abilities that make you nigh immortal. That was my first big D&D campaign, and it's safe to say I'm still turned off by it and afraid of what the dungeon master will do. If you want more examples of the things he did or want to hear the story of how much we argued for 20 minutes about an explosion, feel free to ask in the comments. Thank you for reading my frustrations. In reading through the comments, he doesn't give a ton of clarification, just answering people when they're asking for specifics on the math, and the gist of it basically comes down to, sorry what happened, and yeah, looking at that math, the martial classes are insane for level 7. There's some things in here that could have been easily fixed to not feel like favoritism, like for example, the manor that's gifted to the barbarian. I'm sure there's a story reason where you could map that out, make it feel like it's the party's hub they inherited as a group, and maybe the forge is like the main mechanic on how everyone upgrades their stuff, and some of the NPCs there are like the quest givers. It's like a quest hub if the guy's a fan of like an MMO. It's not bad at all to have a guild hall style place, but it seems like the barbarian was favored with it and no one else got to reap the benefits. Again, if it's low magic and the shops just are limited, they're limited. You have to find a way around it. Maybe delving into ancient dungeons are the only way to get good magic items, but that's not the case here. And the fact that he threw out entirely how wands work, just to make sure that the Barbarian was the person that was going to be able to use this clearly very powerful item. You just have to understand that there are other people at the table, and even if you want to make this Barbarian feel really powerful, you don't have to do it at the expense of everyone else. This is one of those stories where I feel like it might be missing some context, but overall, it just seems like a DM that's running a game poorly for the majority of the table. So it doesn't really matter why the balance or the favoritism's kind of thrown on the martial casters. This would be a problem if the wizard was the only one that got really cool things, and then you told the fighter, you know, that was underpowered, hey buddy, you're the tank. It's your job to keep the wizard alive, you know, he only has D4 hit dice. So that means every time that someone takes a swing at him, you know, your full-time job is protecting them. Isn't that fun? And if you're the fighter and you were hoping to do at least a little damage on the front lines, that would suck. It doesn't matter if it's martial or caster, it's just usually casters tend to get a little more powerful, and this guy is definitely overcompensating to prevent it. So I don't know his experience, but a level 7 wizard, cleric, any caster class really, is not going to wreak the havoc that whatever this Barbarian's getting, where he can get greater invisibility, fly around. The power scaling's broken, and it's not the caster doing it, dude, it's your balance. The reason I picked out this story is because I wanted to talk a little bit about the different balances and how casters do tend to get stronger as time goes on, and you have to work around it as a group. But being forward with your players, like these players are trying to be with the Dungeon Master, that's how you balance stuff later on. You don't just completely overcompensate the other side and shoot them down and nerf them whenever they want to do something even remotely cool, and honestly pretty level appropriate. If a caster wants to cast Fireball and he's spending resources, you know, doing meta magic, the way you counter that is by doing a war of attrition, you know? They said earlier there's like a horde of 80 skeletons. If they're not all grouped together, eventually those fireballs are going to run out, right? That's when the martial class can be really cool, where 2, 3, 4 encounters in, when everyone's running low on resources, the fighter or barbarian is going to be able to keep swinging way more than anyone else. They have consistent damage output, while the caster will have really good rounds where they have to completely make sure everything lines up, and you can even make it a team effort to do that. So even the way you style encounters, or the amount of encounters, is a way to help casters feel more balanced without completely handicapping them. Thanks for stopping by, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Farewell for now.